That night unfolded like a vivid dream, etched forever in my memory. On a serene Friday, the events unfolded. As I reclined on my back, my gaze drifted to the delicate dance of moonlight casting faint patterns upon the ceiling, my thoughts swirling like leaves in a restless breeze. A profound sense of solitude enveloped me as my husband, Robert, embarked on a 2-month business journey, leaving me to navigate the days alone. 3 weeks had slipped by since our paths last crossed. The stillness of the night was gently disturbed by the soft creak of the door, a whisper of movement that shattered my solitude. I propped myself up a bit, narrowing my eyes at the shadowy silhouette lingering in the doorway. My 19-year-old son, Ethan, stood there, his broad shoulders casting a striking silhouette against the soft glow of the dim hallway light. He paused, clutching the doorframe as if it were his sole anchor in a turbulent sea. "Mom," he murmured gently, his voice laced with uncertainty. I rubbed my eyes, feeling a tightening in my heart at the sound of his tone. "Ethan, what seems to be the trouble?" I inquired, straightening my posture. He paused before replying. Instead, he remained motionless, his silhouette casting a long shadow across the room. After a moment, he crossed the threshold, his bare feet whispering softly against the carpet beneath him. His movements were laced with a certain hesitance, a whisper of trepidation that thickened the atmosphere in the room. "I couldn't sleep," he murmured, his voice a soft breeze in the stillness. I cast my eyes upon the clock resting on my nightstand. The clock struck to 14 a.m. Ethan seldom stirred me from my slumber unless a weighty matter weighed heavily on his mind. With a sense of urgency, I let my legs dangle off the edge of the bed, beckoning him to draw nearer. "What unfolds before us?" I inquired softly. He paused once more before perching on the edge of the bed, his posture rigid, his hands firmly clasped in his lap. For a fleeting moment, I observed him, lingering in silence. Yet his eyes remained steadfastly glued to the ground. The air around him crackled with an unmistakable tension. "Ethan, you can share your thoughts with me," I urged gently. "No matter what it may be, I stand ready." He let out a shaky breath, his fingers nervously toying with the hem of his t-shirt. "Once upon a time, in a world filled with wonder. It's a challenge to put into words," he admitted at last. "A feeling has been stirring within me, once upon a time's distinct, and I find myself at a loss, unsure of the path forward." His words wove a thread of unease that coursed through my being. I leaned in just a bit, maintaining a calm tone even as a tightness coiled within me. "In what ways does it stand apart?" I inquired. He gazed up at me then, his eyes probing mine with a fervor that caught me off guard. "It revolves around an individual," he confessed, "a figure that has occupied my thoughts quite frequently, a figure that will surprise you." In a fleeting instant, a wave of relief washed over me. Maybe this was a tale of a girl from school, a crush he found himself lost in, unsure of how to find his way through the maze of his feelings. Ethan had always been hesitant to share his emotions, keeping them locked away until they loomed large, ready to engulf him. "All right," I replied, giving a comforting smile. "Who might it be? Is it someone from school?" He swiftly shook his head, his eyes falling once more. "No," he murmured softly. "It's not an individual from the school." "Then, who might it be?" I pressed gently, yet an unsettling sensation began to stir within my chest. "Ethan, feel free to share with me. No matter what comes our way, we will unravel it together." He inhaled deeply, his chest swelling and contracting as if calling forth every bit of bravery within him. At last, when he found his voice, it quivered with emotion. At long last, he spoke. "It's you, Mom. From the very beginning, it has always been you." The words crashed over me like a mighty tide, stealing the breath from my very core. For a fleeting instant, I found myself paralyzed, struggling to grasp the weight of his words. "Morning," he replied, his voice carrying a rough edge. I filled my mug with a steaming cup of coffee, the rich sound of the liquid cascading into the vessel echoing more than one might expect. I took my seat beside him at the table, the distance between us a curious blend of being too far yet too close. For a fleeting moment, silence enveloped us both. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken words. At last, I shattered the stillness. "Ethan, let me weave you a tale about last night." "I meant what I said," he interrupted, his voice unwavering even as the storm brewed within his gaze. "I won't feign ignorance about it." With a gentle flutter of my eyelids, I sought to embrace tranquility, urging my spirit to find its steadiness. "I understand your truth," I murmured gently, "but Ethan, what you're experiencing, this isn't something we can pursue. It's not a course of action we ought to pursue." He reclined in his chair, fingers clutching the table's edge as if it were the only anchor in a sea of thoughts. "Why not?" he inquired, his tone laced with exasperation. "Why must love be confined within rules and boundaries? Isn't love meant to be unbound?" I inhaled deeply, sifting through my thoughts for the perfect words to weave into my tale. "Love transcends mere feelings, Ethan," I expressed, It revolves around the essence of righteousness and the well-being of all those engaged, and this, what you're expressing, it could wound us both. He averted his gaze, his jaw clenched in tension. I don't want to hurt you, he murmured softly. That's the final thing I desire. I understand, I said, extending my hand across the table to cover his. And I have no desire to cause you any pain, either. That is the reason we must approach this with great care. We must discover a path to transcend this moment. His fingers curled firmly around mine. For a fleeting instant, I glimpsed the boy he once was, the one who grasped my hand in fear, who sought my guidance and solace. Yet, this was unlike anything else. The gaze he cast upon me now held a new depth. I don't know if I can move past it, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Yet, I shall make the effort for you. With emotion swelling within me, I gently squeezed his hand. Tears brimming in my eyes, that is all I inquire. The days that came after were a haze of uneasy dialogues and contrived normalcy. Ethan sought to maintain his distance, often retreating to his room or wandering outside for long stretches of time. I recounted. For his own good, it was best that he had the space to navigate his emotions. Yet, I found myself longing for him, longing for the effortless connection we once enjoyed before everything took a different turn. From the moment he revealed his truth, we found ourselves entwined in the same bed night after night. Yet, an invisible chasm lingered between us. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I heard the front door creak open and then softly close. Ethan entered the kitchen, his hair still glistening from the rain's embrace. He gazed at me for what felt like an eternity, weighing the choice of whether to break the silence with words. Hey there, I remarked, making an effort to maintain a cheerful tone. Ah, you've arrived at the perfect moment. The feast is nearly prepared. He paused before replying. Instead, he strolled over to the counter and rested against it, his arms folded. After a moment of contemplation, he finally spoke up. I switched off the stove and turned to him, my heart racing with anticipation. What is it about? Regarding us, he remarked, his eyes unwavering. Concerning the words I shared that evening, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I was well aware of the night he had in mind. Ethan, I believed we had come to a mutual understanding. I know, he interrupted. And I'm not here to debate. I must share this. I nodded, encouraging him to carry on with his tale. I've been pondering what to do with these. Emotions swirled in the air as he spoke, his voice a steady whisper, yet resolute. And I came to a profound realization. I fear the thought of losing what we share, Mum, even if it doesn't align with my desires. I would choose to have you in my life as my mother, rather than take the chance of losing you entirely. A wave of relief enveloped me, yet it was tinged with the melancholy that lingered in his voice. Ethan, you shall not lose me, I declared, regardless of the circumstances. My presence will always be a constant for you. He nodded, his lips forming a tight line, a silent testament to his thoughts. I understand. But it can be quite challenging. It's quite a challenge. I drew nearer, my hand resting gently on his arm. Patience is required, I remarked softly, yet you possess great strength, Ethan. And I shall guide you through this in every way I can. As our gazes locked, a fleeting sense of relief washed over the tension that had hung in the air between us. Thank you, Mum, he whispered gently. That holds great significance. In the heart of the kitchen, we lingered, the rain softly drumming on the windows, weaving a gentle backdrop to our moment. And for the first time in days, a glimmer of hope flickered within me, suggesting that perhaps we might be okay after all. Yet, life often weaves its intricate patterns just when you think you have it all figured out. Just when I believed we had finally discovered a hint of tranquility, an unexpected event emerged, casting a shadow over all we had built. The delicate truce that Ethan and I had forged lingered in the air, a tenuous bond that somehow managed to hold together, though it was as fragile as spun glass. He put forth the effort to smile more, to chuckle at my jokes, to share meals with me like he once did. I held on to those moments, seeking to persuade myself that things were getting better. Yet, in the stillness of the night, when the world outside was hushed and I found myself in solitude with my reflections, the heaviness of his revelation remained, echoing in the quiet corners of my mind. One evening, after a long day at work, I stumbled upon Ethan in the living room. He found himself perched seated on the couch, gazing vacantly at the flickering screen of the television. A vintage sitcom flickered on the screen, its laugh track resonating awkwardly in the otherwise still room. As I entered, he raised his gaze, his expression a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Are you all right? I inquired, taking my place beside him. He simply shrugged, a gesture that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. Indeed, lost in thought, I paused, weighing my words carefully before letting them flow. Is there a specific tale you wish to hear? He released a gentle chuckle, yet it held no trace of amusement. Ah, Ethan, the reality is, I share those very sentiments. And that is what sends shivers down the spine. He stood still, his eyes filled with astonishment. What is it that you seek? He murmured softly, as if the meaning of my words had eluded him. I inhaled deeply, my heart racing as I summoned the strength to confront the reality we had both been sidestepping. I sense it as well. What you shared. It's not something I can simply overlook. I'm not feigning indifference. I have not ventured there. The atmosphere felt heavy, as if my confession had filled the space with an unbearable tension. Ethan stood there, anchored in the moment, gazing at me, his expression a mystery waiting to be unraveled. For what felt like an eternity, we remained still, caught in the silence of the moment. At last, he shook his head, his voice a mere whisper. Mom, this ISN single quotes D. This feels off. I understand that it ISN single quotes D. Yet here we find ourselves at this very moment. I trembled, yet there was no path to retreat. I ought to have shared this with you sooner. It was a moment where I could have intervened, a chance to halt the unfolding tale before it began. Alas, the moment has passed, and we cannot turn back time. He took a step back, raking his fingers through his hair, a wave of frustration washing over him. Alas, we find ourselves unable to do so. This is a challenge we cannot overcome. He almost raised his voice in a dramatic flare. This is a line we must not cross, and I found myself in accord. I yearned to assure him that all would be well, that in some way we could mend this situation, yet the reality was, it was beyond repair. Not the outcome we envisioned. It wasn't how it was meant to unfold. Oh, how I longed to declare it merely a fleeting moment in time. It was a fleeting moment, yet it carried a weight that felt undeniably real. It seemed like a presence that would remain, a shadow cast upon us. Yet we must put an end to it. I murmured, this cannot be the end of all we hold dear. He nodded slowly, his expression a delicate dance of anguish and resignation. I'm not sure I can just let it go, Mum, he admitted. I'm uncertain if I can ever perceive you in quite the same light again. Neither can I replied, my voice trembling, yet it is a necessity we must embrace. A profound silence enveloped us. A stillness that resonated more deeply than any spoken words ever could. It seemed as though we had both reached a certain understanding, even if the words remained unspoken between us. Perhaps we were both fractured in our own unique manners. Yet true healing eluded us as long as we continued to nourish the very forces that were unraveling our bond. We sought a realm of our own, a moment to breathe and reflect. I moved ahead, my heart weighed down. We'll unravel this mystery together, I whispered gently. But for the time being, for the moment, we must take a step back from this. We must embrace the notion that it's perfectly fine to not always feel fine. We must cease the charade that it doesn't cause us pain. Ethan remained silent. He simply nodded, his gaze heavy with doubt, and made his way slowly to his room. Uncertainty loomed before me, a shadow of doubt whispering that nothing would ever return to its former state. Yet, one truth stood out vividly. We could no longer maintain the facade that all was well. As I ponder this, I come to understand that experiencing love isn't inherently a mistake. Is it, even when it challenges norms or sends shivers down the spine of others? I felt a weight in my throat as the echoes of my own words stirred something profound inside me. Love, in its essence, holds no fault, I remarked with a hint of caution. Yet taking action on it can be, particularly when it threatens to bring sorrow to those dear to us. He nodded slowly as if he had foreseen my response, yet still craved the sound of it spoken into the air. I see, he replied. But what am I to do with these emotions that swirl within me? Cast them aside, as if they are mere shadows in the background. No, I replied, shaking my head. There's no need to reject them. I have a confession to make. May you find a way to transform your feelings into something meaningful, rather than allowing them to burden you. He settled into the chair opposite me, his shoulders drooping with a weight of unspoken tales. That's a tale that's often told, Mum. But what is it that you wish to reveal? To my astonishment, he released a soft, anxious chuckle. Your gentle caresses, he inquired. Indeed, I was aware. Yet, I believed you were merely attempting to soothe my spirit, to lift my spirits. In all honesty, they only deepen my sense of being adrift, tantalizingly near to my desires yet still just beyond my grasp. You're not lost, I said softly, leaning in closer. In your quest for direction, remember, it's perfectly fine to seek your path. It's a chapter in the journey of growth and discovery. He gazed. At that moment, his eyes were filled with a deep vulnerability, stirring a profound ache in my chest. I don't want to lose you, Mum, he whispered softly. I cannot bear the thought of losing you. You won't, I declared with conviction, my voice unwavering even as a tempest of emotions churned inside me. Regardless of the circumstances, my support for you remains unwavering. That will remain constant. In that fleeting instant, as his eyes locked onto mine, I felt the exhilarating rush of my heart quickening. I had kept some secrets from him, that my touches held meanings beyond mere kindness. They mirrored a part of me, a part I was hesitant to face, yet deep down, I understood that I couldn't allow this predicament to linger any further. With a deep breath, I began, "Ethan, allow me to complete my thought." Those touches held a deeper meaning, woven with intention beyond mere comfort. He stood still, his face a mask of mystery. "So, what were they?" he inquired with a hint of uncertainty. I felt something too, I confessed, my voice barely rising above a whisper. Above a whisper, "I still do, but I hesitated to voice it, for I am your mother and it feels wrong. What we experience, it defies all that we understand, yet I cannot refute its presence." For a long moment, silence enveloped him, words lingering just out of reach. Then, in a surprising turn of events, he leaned closer and rested his hand on my leg. "Ethan," I exclaimed hurriedly, my voice quivering with emotion, "this is beyond our reach." "What tales do you have about your father?" he whispered. As if sharing a secret meant only for the two of them, "Let it remain a secret, hidden from all." Yet, the uncertainty reflected in his gaze echoed my own. He leaned in closer, his breath a gentle warmth against my face as he kissed me. A fleeting moment of intensity that was both brief and utterly consuming. I pulled away, shaking my head in disbelief. "This isn't right," I declared with conviction. "It is time for us to pause. How about we take a moment to unwind this evening and revisit this conversation tomorrow, shall we?" He gave a slight nod. With a heavy heart, the unspoken tension lingered between us. In the quiet of the evening, we moved through our familiar rituals, brushing our teeth and slipping into our sleepwear, each action a gentle whisper of the night. I gave him a subtle smile while he splashed water on his face, and shortly after, I nestled into bed. By now, it had woven itself into the fabric of our lives for him to find solace in my bed. Since that very first night. After a brief pause, he made his way over to me. I drew back the covers and he nestled in beside me. "Let's find some rest and untangle this tomorrow," I whispered softly, "before your father returns." "All right, very well," he responded, his tone heavy with acceptance. I could feel the weight of his struggle to come to terms with the reality that this would lead nowhere. We ventured to the bathroom where we brushed our teeth and prepared ourselves for the night ahead. As I slipped into my pajamas, I cast a smile his way while he tended to his face at the sink. As I entered the sanctuary of my bedroom, I nestled into the comforting embrace of my bed. In the weeks that followed that initial night of his revelation, it became quite customary for him to share my bed. A few moments later, he stepped into the room, and just before he reached the bed, I pulled back the sheets, inviting him to slip in. As I shared earlier, the tension lingered in the air and I suggested, "Let's ensure we get some good rest before we dive into all of this tomorrow. Just before Dad returns, all right?" "Very well," he replied. It seemed as though he had already accepted the notion that nothing was destined to unfold. Alas, I had not, regrettably so. I switched off the night light and whispered, "Good night, darling," shunning him. "Good night, Mum," I heard. My thoughts were whirling in a chaotic dance. A few minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and my thoughts danced chaotically in every direction. In a fleeting instant, my foot brushed against his leg. A blend of intention and serendipity intertwining in that delicate moment. He remained steadfast. And in an instant, I found myself drawing him nearer. With a swift motion, he seized my leg, prompting me to pivot around. In the vicinity, for a fleeting moment, I found myself hesitating, yet I surrendered to the unfolding of events. Our lips met in a gentle embrace, and we ventured beyond that sweet moment of connection. I'll refrain from delving into the specifics of what transpired,